When it comes to movie genres, one that really stands out is the spaghetti western. It's a subgenre of western films, mostly made by Italian filmmakers during the 1960s and 70s. These films are known for their low budgets, gritty violence, and non-traditional music scores. Some of the most iconic ones included The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the original Django from 1996, not the one with Jamie Foxx, and A Fistful of Dollars. These movies gained a strong cult following over the years. Films like Back to the Future 3 and Django Unchained even paid homage to them. And this genre didn't just stay in movies. It expanded to TV shows, books, and of course, because you're watching this channel, you know where it eventually made its way to: video games. In 2004, Rockstar Games jumped into the saddle with a title that felt like it was ripped straight from the spaghetti western playbook. But this game had a rocky development cycle before it finally landed in our hands. Welcome to episode 7 of the Rockstar Takeover. Today, we're heading back to the 1800s, deep in the American Old West with Red Dead Revolver. If you're new to the channel, welcome aboard. I'm glad you're here. And if you're a returning viewer, first off, welcome back. Secondly, we need to have a conversation. I'm sure you saw Rockstar's post last week. Yep, GTA 6 got delayed again. Now some of my older videos where I'm talking about the retrospective and the Rockstar Takeover is building up to GTA 6, that didn't age well. We're waiting another year. Now, this throws a wrench in my whole content calendar because I had planned this year around a full slate of Rockstar retrospectives. I did thumbnails. I done got a bunch of games. Thanks to y'all, I was finally able to get monetized and invest in some games just so I can play them for the channel. I even started playing some of them early just because some of them was too much to cover in one short week. So yeah, like you, I'm pretty disappointed. But unlike Rockstar, I'm keeping my promise. That's right, we are getting the Rockstar Takeover retrospectives before GTA 6. You're still getting retrospectives on GTA. You're still getting retrospectives on Bully. You're still getting retrospectives on LA Noire. And yes, I'm even making a retrospective on the Warriors. Oh, and don't forget, we're still on track for the Mortal Kombat Takeover. Another video is dropping next week, and we've got about 4 left before that series wraps up. And that's been one heck of a ride, and thank you all for tuning into that as well. So I say to you, if you grew up playing these games and want to take a stroll down memory lane, or you need something to play in the background while you work, or even just something to fall asleep to, I got you. Hit that subscribe button to stay up to date and help me hit my goal of 10K subs this year. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please drop a like. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. With that being said, let's dive into this. In case you missed my Midnight Club retrospectives, let me give you a quick recap because a lot of the background from those videos ties directly into this game. So back in the 70s, a young man named Diego Angel enrolled at the Art Institute of Chicago to study film. While he was there, he discovered a passion for computer animation. Fast forward to 1984, he moves from Chicago to San Diego and launches his own animation studio, Angel Studios. They started small, but by the early 90s, they were collaborating with Silicon Graphics to make tech demos. Those demos didn't go unnoticed. Nintendo, which was gearing up for the launch of its next big console, the Nintendo Ultra 64, which was later renamed to the Nintendo 64, was forming what they called a dream team of developers to support it. Angel Studios made the cut, joining an elite group of just 10 third-party studios. One of the other members, DMA Design, the team that would eventually become Rockstar North. As part of that major dream team, Angel Studios developed 2 baseball games starring Ken Griffey Jr. in Major League Baseball and Slugfest, which released in 1998 and 1999. But their biggest technical flex came when they successfully ported Resident Evil 2 to the N64, a major accomplishment at the time. That port was also their first collaboration with a Japanese company, Capcom. And that's where things really start to connect. After Resident Evil 2, Capcom wanted Angel Studios to develop an original IP. There were a lot of ideas being tossed around between the San Diego team and Capcom Japan. One early concept, according to former team members, involved Capcom's Yoshiki Akamoto pitching a third-person shooter called SWAT. The twist, you control different tactical team members with unique abilities, switching between them mid-mission. Akamoto later told Polygon he doesn't clearly remember it stating that way, but hey, it was a long time ago. Whatever the case, Angel Studios ran with the idea and built a prototype over the next 3 months. A little while later, the concept took one final turn, and this one stuck. The game became a Western. See, Akamoto, who had worked on the 1985 arcade shooter Gunsmoke, told the team he wanted to make another game set in the Wild West after watching the movie Blind Man. That flick lit the spark. Angel Studios ran with it, and in true cheeky fashion, they reworked the acronym SWAT into something more genre-fitting. The Spaghetti Western Action Team. And just like that, Dead Revolver was born. About a year into development, Capcom decided to get more hands-on and sent some of their own developers to oversee the project. Among them was Akira Yasuda, a legendary artist best known for designing Chun-Li from Street Fighter II, who joined as an art director. Under Yasuda's vision, the game tone shifted. It wasn't just a gritty Western anymore. It started to take on a more fantasy-like, almost surreal vibe. Think magical realism meets shootouts. Now, Angel Studios, being based in the US, knew the traditional Western aesthetic inside and out. But some of the Japanese team's ideas, let's just say they raised a few eyebrows. Take this for example. According to Darren Batter, who directed the game, he stated, one of the characters that they had in the game, they wanted him to be this big, giant, sort of Frankenstein-looking guy who was wearing a dress. It's like, wearing a dress? What are you talking about? That same cultural gap showed up in the game's title, Dead Revolver. A name Capcom came up with was dreamed up by employee Nato Tamagani, who thought it'd be catchy to rhyme red with dead, but over at Angel Studios, the name had people scratching their heads. It sounded cool, sure, but didn't make much sense to them. Work culture was another clash, especially when it came to Yasuda. The guy lived at the studio. Literally, he barely left the office, sleeping under his desk and grinding 7 days a week. To the American team, it was mind-blowing. All of these cultural and communication differences made development bumpy. According to Angel Studios developers, Capcom was firmly in control. It wasn't a partnership, it was a top-down operation. Capcom gave the orders, Angel followed them. Sometimes entire levels were built only to be scrapped without warning. No explanation, just gone. For Angel Studios, this was frustrating. They were used to a more collaborative approach, where ideas could come from anyone, anywhere. With Capcom, not so much. As development troubles mounted, Angel Studios found themselves in real danger of missing key milestones, and for an independent studio working under contract with Capcom, that meant something serious. No milestones, no paychecks. Despite the problems behind the scenes, Capcom finally unveiled Dead Revolver to the public in March 2002. But internally, many developers were skeptical about the game, wondering if it'll ever ship. Progress felt non-existent. Capcom would greenlight an idea, then scrap it, and restart massive portions of the game from scratch. It was like spinning wheels in the mud. But eventually they did make it to the Tokyo Game Show. And here's what they saw. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Diego Angel was preparing to sell his company. Outside of Capcom, one of Angel Studios' biggest clients had already been Rockstar Games. And in 2002, that same year Red Dead was revealed, Rockstar made a move that would change everything. They acquired Angel Studios, absorbing the tech, the team of 125 employees, and its leadership. The studio will be reborn as Rockstar San Diego. That deal came with all of Angel's current projects. After a bit of back and forth, Red Dead Revolver was included in the handover. Shortly after the acquisition, Akamoto left Capcom, and with him gone, and with the game now in Rockstar's house, Capcom decided to cut ties. There wasn't much reason to hold on to the project anymore. According to Akamoto, the game had essentially been his thing at Capcom, and once he was out, so was Capcom. Capcom retained the publishing rights for Japan, but otherwise, Red Dead Revolver now belonged to Rockstar. Angel Studios, now under the Rockstar banner, was allowed to keep working on it, this time with more creative freedom. Eventually, the public caught wind that Capcom had abandoned the project. In 2003, a revealing update came from an unlikely source, a post on a blog from Akira Yasuda. In it, he confirmed that Capcom had officially stopped sponsoring the development of Red Dead Revolver, but the game wasn't dead. The American team, now under Rockstar, was still pushing forward, backed by their new publisher. Yasuda noted that while Capcom had pulled out, the official site for the game remained online, a kind of ghost page lingering while development quietly continued under new management. This marked the final severing of ties between the East and West teams. 4 months after Capcom pulled the plug, Rockstar re-announced Red Dead Revolver. What most people didn't know was that Rockstar San Diego had never stopped working on it. Development had continued quietly behind the scenes, and now with Rockstar fully behind the project, things finally started to click. The difference was night and day. Where Capcom's oversight had led to confusion and resets, Rockstar brought clarity. They gave the team focus and, most importantly, creative ownership. It was no longer a one-sided relationship. Now, developer and publisher were working together with a shared vision. Both sides knew what kind of Western they wanted to make. They agreed on honoring the stylized cinematic roots of the game, the dusty duels, the stoic gunslingers, the lawless frontier. One of the first priorities was overhauling the dueling system, making it feel like a proper standoff between outlaws. Character designs reworked to better reflect the period, and the overall presentation was sharpened to impress players in a world that felt authentically wild and untamed. According to Jamie King, who was VP of Rockstar, he was asked about Red Dead Revolver. Here was the question, and here's what he said. Was Red Dead Revolver completely overhauled into a new game, or was the game developed under Capcom Japan just tweaked a bit? There were already a lot of really strong ideas and features in the game when we first checked it out, but Rockstar has its own style. And of course, a Western game on the Rockstar label would have to live up to certain standards. Certain elements remain unchanged, such as the visual look of the environments, but a lot of the game has been altered. We revamped the story, improved the gameplay, and added all new cutscenes, voices, and music. There are even some brand new features like Deadeye gunplay. Anyone who played Red Dead Revolver at E3 or the Tokyo Game Show a couple years ago would find today's game to be a lot different. I would venture to say it's light years ahead of where it was a year ago. Around the time this interview, they were polishing the game and everything was coming into play. Eventually, the game would drop on May 4th, 2004 for both Xbox and PS2 users in North America. Also, it would drop on June 11, 2004 for European markets. But what's hilarious is the game also dropped for Japanese markets on May 26, 2004, rubbing salt in Capcom's wound as Red Dead became a reality. Here's a quick spoiler alert because I'm about to tell the story behind Red Dead Revolver. Now, if you're not a fan of spoilers, please advance this video to the gameplay overview section as seen on the timeline below. Let's dive into this. The story opens up with a prospector named Nate Harlow returning home to his family, excited to share news of their newfound riches. As a symbol of trust and tradition, he gives his young son, Red, his old pistol. Red, eager to practice, heads out back, but before he can get comfortable, their home is ambushed by bandits. Red and his father fight back, but it ends in tragedy. Nate and Red's mother, Falling Star, are killed. In the chaos, an injured Red grabs his father's brand new revolver from the burning house. He uses it to shoot the bandit leader, Darren, blowing off the man's arm. Red escapes, but the hot barrel leaves a permanent mark. A scorpion-shaped burn seared into the palm of his hand.
Pa! Pa! Get up, Pa! 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 Get up, Pa! Pa! Pa!
Kid, I reckon your pa's better off dead. Him being such a yellow belly and all.
Ah!
Years pass. Red Harlow is no longer a boy. Hardened by loss, he's become a bounty hunter, roaming the frontier in search of the men who destroyed his family. He wanders into the dusty outpost of Twin Rocks, where he chats briefly with a nervous trader, but trouble doesn't take long to find him. Two outlaws show up, harass the trader, and then turn their attention to Red. A shootout breaks out, and before long, the gang's leader, Bloody Tom, arrives with his goons, Big Oaf and his son, Loaf Whitney. Red guns them all down, loads their body into a wagon, and sets out for the frontier of the town's widow's patch to collect the bounties. But when he arrives, the local sheriff breaks the bad news. There's no reward. The town's been overrun by the Ugly Gang, and there's no law left to back the bounties. As if that wasn't enough, Red watches in horror as one of the gang's members shoots his dog dead in cold blood. That's all the motivation he needs. Red tears through the gang one thug at a time, eventually eliminating their leader, Ugly Chris, and ending their hold on the town. With Sheriff O'Grady badly wounded and his daughter pleading for help, Red agrees to escort him by train to a doctor in Brimstone.
Excuse me, mister? Mister, please, can you help me? You gotta help my pa. There's no doctor left in this town.
The closest doctor's in Brimstone. Sheriff Bartlett might offer you a handsome reward if you can get me there.
I'll send a telegram and tell him about your arrival.
What starts as a simple train ride quickly derails, literally. Bandits launch a full assault on the train, and Red jumps into action. He fights his way through the cars, killing one outlaw after another, even climbing to the roof for a high-stakes shootout under the open sky. Eventually, he secures the train and makes it to Brimstone. There, he walks into Sheriff Bartlett's office, where he's offered more bounty work. If Red's reputation is true, the sheriff says he's got just the job. The first target, a lunatic explosives expert named Pig Josh. Red heads to the fairgrounds where he meets Jack Swift, a fast-talking gunslinger held captive by Josh's gang. The two team up and clear out the town of bandits and take Pig Josh down together. Jack thanks Red and says he's got his own scores to settle.
Thank you, sir. Your help has been immensely appreciated. If I can be of any assistance whatsoever, do not hesitate to call upon me. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a certain debt to collect from Professor Perry and his circus crew. Good day to you.
The story shifts to Jack Swift, who arrives at a deserted widow's patch in search of Professor Perry. As he explores the eerily quiet streets, he stumbles upon a young woman tied to the town's water tower. Just as he moves to untie her, a knife thuds into the wood beside him. Jack turns to find himself surrounded by members of Perry's twisted circus crew. A fierce fight breaks out. After dispatching the clowns and freaks, Jack confronts and defeats Perry himself, completing his mission. The narrative returns to Red Harlow, now back in Brimstone to collect the bounty on Pig Josh. Sheriff Bartlett commends his work and offers him another job. This time, the target is a notorious female outlaw named Bad Bessie. Red heads to the lawless lands of Rogue Valley and dismantles her gang before eliminating Bessie herself. With her corpse in tow, he returns once again to Brimstone. Chef Bartlett praises Red's efficiency, but reveals that one final outlaw remains, a mysterious figure known only as Mr. Black. Bartlett admits he knows almost nothing about the man, not even if he's still alive. Undeterred, Red travels to the ghost town of Tarnation. After clearing out Black's gang, Red makes his way to an eerie cemetery for a final showdown. He puts Mr. Black down for good in his own casket and returns to Brimstone, having completed the final bounty. But there's a problem. The sheriff can't pay him. The bank hasn't received the funds yet. Red storms over to the bank and finds Annie Stokes, pleading with the manager for more time to pay off the debt of her ranch. The manager refuses. Annie leaves empty-handed, and Red threatens the banker to have his money ready when he gets back. At her ranch, Annie takes a stand against the bandits, attempting to seize her land. After the fight, Red arrives and listens as Annie explains her struggles. In a rare act of compassion, Red gives her the bounty money that was meant for him. Without a word, he turns and walks back towards town.
Ma'am?
Do I know you, stranger?
Tell me about the gold mine in Bear Mountain.
I know nothing about a gold mine. You might want to take a trip on down to the saloon in Brimstone. It's always littered with a bunch of drunks yapping about it. But watch yourself, mister. You want no business with the folks in that town. This place is all I've ever known.
Ma'am?
5,000 pieces in gold. This'll help me keep my ranch.
Later, Red finds himself in Brimstone's saloon, taking Annie's advice to relax at the bar. There, he overhears two drunken men telling tales of a man who had lost his arm and replaced it with a cannon. Red's blood runs cold. He interrupts and asks who are they talking about. One of them tells him to mind his business. Red responds by slamming a broken bottle against the man's throat. A bar brawl erupts. After taking down everyone in the room, Red is arrested by Sheriff Bartlett for disturbing the peace. In the jail cell, Bartlett confronts Red about his violent behavior. Red calmly reveals that the man the drunks were talking about, the one with the cannon arm, is the same man who murdered his family. Shocked, the sheriff sits down and begins to tell Red the truth behind everything.
Fella such as yourself should know better than to stick his nose where it don't belong.
Tell me about the one-armed man.
What's it to you?
He killed my folks.
Well, I'll be darned. I'd heard rumors you were alive, but never believed it. You're Nate Harlow's son, Red.
Tell me what you know about the death of my family.
You see, it all happened about 12 years ago, when the U.S. cavalry made a little incursion south of the border.
The sheriff recounts a bloody battle led by General Javier Diego against the United States Army at the border bridge between Mexico and the United States. Among Diego's forces was Colonel Darren, the same man Red shot as a child. The scene shifts to a war, with Diego cutting through American soldiers. Cannons explode, soldiers fall, and demolition crews rush to plant charges beneath the bridge to halt the United States advance. Once the bridge detonates, Diego's men bring out captured prisoners, one of whom is Nate Harlow's old partner, Griffin. Faced with death, Griffin makes a deal. In exchange for his life, he offers Diego a share of the gold claim at Bear Mountain.
Andale! This will teach those gringos to cross the Rio Grande. No uniform. He must be a spy. Bring him to me. Take him to the river and shoot him like a dog.
No, no, no! I'm not a spy! I'm a businessman! Please! I was just trying to get across the river! Please! I have gold! Lots of gold!
Haha, you lied to save your pathetic life!
No! It's true! It's true! I have gold!
Bring him to me!
It's lots of gold. More gold than you've ever seen. A gold mine, and it's just over the border in the territory. If you spare my life, I can give you half.
Huh? Why shouldn't I take all of it?
'Cause you don't know where it is.
You better speak fast. We need some privacy. Now tell me more about this gold mine.
Truth be told, there is one little problem. I only own half the claim. My partner Nate owns the other half.
And what if I kill your partner?
Then that would make us partners.
Partner.
Where would I find this Diego?
He rides through the territory to deliver gold to the governor once a week. He rests his horses at Devil's Fork. It won't be easy. That wagon is like a fortress on wheels. The charges are dropped. If you reckon you can bring him in, dead or... well, dead'll do.
Much obliged.
After discovering that General Javier Diego was the one who ordered the murder of his parents, Red Harlow sets out for Sunset Canyon with a singular purpose: revenge. He tracks down the stagecoach that Diego uses to transport his gold and destroys it in a fiery ambush. As he approaches the wreckage, Red is suddenly blindsided and knocked unconscious by Darren, the same man whose arm Red shot off as a child. Darren is eager to eliminate Red, but Diego intervenes, stating that he needs Red alive. He orders his men to take him to the gold mine. As the scene fades, the camera pans back to reveal a hidden observer, a Native American warrior and Red's cousin, Shadow Wolf.
I want him alive. I have questions for this one. Take him to the gold mine.
Now aware that his cousin is alive and in danger, Shadow Wolf returns to the Red Wolf tribe to speak with the elders. After delivering the news, his grandfather, Chief Running Moon, gives his blessing. Shadow Wolf must rescue Red. He sets out for Bear Mountain. Shadow Wolf infiltrates the mine and eventually finds Red locked in a jail cell, along with the captured U.S. cavalry soldier only known as Buffalo Soldier. Using a key taken from the brute Grizzly, Shadow Wolf frees his cousin. Red fights his way through the mine and is ambushed by Diego's men, Ted and Tony, but takes them down in a gritty showdown before escaping to the surface. As Red and Shadow Wolf flee the mines, the focus shifts to Buffalo Soldier, who was determined to return to Brimstone and request military aid from the governor. He hitches a ride on a TNT-laden supply wagon, but Diego's men give chase. Buffalo Soldier fends them off as the wagon barrels through the treacherous Hell Pass, where hostile native warriors attack from the cliffs above. After a tense battle through the canyon, the wagon reaches the edge of Brimstone. Buffalo Soldier makes his way to the governor's office, and when he enters and urgently reports that the threat of General Diego poses, the governor is calm and collected. He brushes it off as a misunderstanding. He praises Diego as one of his biggest financial contributors. Just then, Mr. Kelly steps forward, gun drawn. The governor grins and says, "Mr. Kelly here is going to take really good care of you."
Governor, you gotta call General Bowden right away, sir.
Who let you in here, soldier?
There's a renegade general on your territory. His name is Diego. He's running a gold mine, and he's using slave labor. It's a job only the U.S. Army can handle, sir. He has an army, and a fort, too.
Well, thank you, soldier. Mr. Diego is one of my biggest contributors. I'm sure this is all a simple misunderstanding. But Mr. Kelly here, he's gonna take good care of you.
Meanwhile, as Buffalo Soldier pleads for help in Brimstone, Red and Shadow Wolf are making their escape from Bear Mountain Mine. Exiting through separate paths, they reunite in the courtyard at Fort Diego, only to be pinned down by a Gatling gun. Shadow Wolf volunteers to draw the gunner's fire, allowing Red to circle around and take out the gunner. Inside the fort, Red comes face to face with Darren once more. The two engage in a final brutal duel. Red emerges victorious, leaving Darren mortally wounded. A cutscene follows, showing Red kneeling beside his dying cousin. His cousin tells him he fought bravely, but Diego still lives. In the distance, a train whistle blows. Diego is escaping. As Shadow Wolf draws his final breath, Red takes the warrior's ceremonial knife and stabs it into Darren's chest, ensuring that those who find the battlefield will remember Shadow Wolf was the hero of Fort Diego. where Shadow Wolf, Colonel Darren, and many of Diego's men were eliminated, General Diego makes a desperate escape aboard a heavily armored train. But Red Harlow isn't far behind. Mounted on horseback and burning with vengeance, Red chases down the train, boarding it to dismantle Diego's defenses one car at a time. Along the way, he spots Blind Willie Wilson operating a hand car on a parallel track, equipped with a Gatling gun. Red takes aim on Blind Willie's Gatling gun and destroys the train's engine, bringing it to a screeching halt. Red finally confronts Diego face to face. Crawling backward and cornered, Diego tries to bribe Red for his life. But when he utters familiar words reminiscent of Griffin, Red doesn't hesitate. Unlike others who sold him out, Red ends with a shot to the head. Justice is served.
I have gold! Lots of it! You can have it if you spare my life! Whiskey, women, fine weapons, anything you want. What do you say, partner?
With Diego eliminated, Red returns to Brimstone and enters the annual Battle Royale. His first duel is with Navarro, fought under standard rules. After Red takes him down, a montage of still images shows Jack Swift, Annie Stokes, Billy Cougar, and Mr. Kelly each defeating their opponents. Sheriff Bartlett announces Red's next match against Billy Cougar, which ends with Red victorious once again. Now, it's the final round. Red is set to duel the reigning champion, Mr. Kelly. Although Annie and Jack are still in the competition, Governor Griffin steps in and disqualifies them, rigging the contest to make Red and Kelly the deciding match. Red wins the duel, but before he can celebrate, Griffin draws a familiar weapon, the Scorpion revolver. In that moment, Red flashes back to the same revolver that his father showed him. Griffin has just revealed himself to be the one who betrayed his father. Kelly, wounded but not out, gets back up. Griffin commands him to finish the job. Red and Kelly engage in a brutal gunfight through the streets of Brimstone, ending with Kelly finally eliminated. Jack and Annie regroup with Red just as Sheriff Bartlett appears. Red demands to know where the governor is hiding. Bartlett tells him the mansion. Jack and Annie both agree. They're coming with him.
I guess I lost my chance at 5,000 in gold. A small price to pay to avoid shooting you, madam.
Jack Swift, you're just lucky to be alive. Sheriff, are you all right?
Oh, I'm all right.
Tell me where to find him.
His mansion, but it's secured like a fortress. It'll be hard even for a bounty hunter like you.
He will not be alone.
He ain't the only one who wants the governor. I reckon that their prize money is in that mansion of his.
Red, Jack Swift, and Annie Stokes all have their own scores to settle with Governor Griffin. Together, they storm the mansion. A fierce gunfight breaks outside as Jack picks the lock with Red and Annie holding off waves of enemies. Once inside, they press deeper into the mansion, determined to confront the man responsible for so much pain. Annie splits off to find the governor, the gold, and to wreak havoc wherever she can along the way. Red and Jack fight through the foyer and into the mansion's west wing, eventually taking on the Cornett brothers. After regrouping, Red and Annie head upstairs to find Buffalo Soldier. Annie tells him to press on without her. She's going to find Jack. Red and Buffalo Soldier reach the governor's office only to find a figure seated with his back to them. It's not Griffin, it's Jason Cornett, who mocks them before challenging Red to a duel. Red eliminates him, clearing the final obstacle. The last confrontation unfolds on the roof of the mansion. Griffin makes his last stand, and Red and Buffalo Soldier fight to reach him. Buffalo tries to blow open the gate, but Griffin beats him to it. Injured, Buffalo tells Red to go on alone. Red faces Griffin in a final, fateful duel, and luck or justice is still on Red's side. He eliminates the governor. As the dust settles, Sheriff Bartlett inspects Griffin's body. Annie tends to Buffalo Soldier. Red asks about Jack, and Annie's silence says it all. He didn't make it. Bartlett warns Red that the army is on its way and offers him the $5,000 prize money for the battle royale, but Red refuses. Instead, he takes Griffin's Scorpion revolver and tells Bartlett to give the gold to Annie and Buffalo Soldier. With his revenge complete and justice served, Red rides off into the distance. His journey is finally over.
Never did like him much.
Jack?
Well, Red, I'm not saying Griffin didn't deserve it, but he was the governor. I reckon the army will be sniffing around here, and, well, I'd hate to see you hang after all you've done. 5,000 in gold sound like a fair bounty?
Give it to them. It never was about the money.
Now, judging by the title of this video, you probably guessed it. I'm calling Red Dead Revolver a spaghetti western, and if you're not familiar with that term, don't worry. Let me break it down. A spaghetti western is a type of western film that came out of Italy during the 60s and 70s. These movies, often made by Italian directors, sometimes with help from Spanish studios, were low budget but had a very distinct style. Think dusty desert towns, intense close-up, stylized violence, and music that hits different, usually thanks to Ennio Morricone. They ditched the clean-cut cowboy hero for morally gray bounty hunters, revenge-driven loners, and all kinds of shady characters. Basically, they flipped the traditional American Western on its head. Red Dead Revolver is a straight-up love letter to that genre. Red Harlow? Total spaghetti Western anti-hero. He's a quiet, gritty bounty hunter out for revenge after watching his parents get eliminated. It's a classic setup. Along the way, he crosses paths with double-crossers, freaky outlaws, and corrupt lawmen, much like the gunslingers in Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy. The game leans hard into that spaghetti western energy, from its storytelling and cutscenes to its soundtrack. Even that big bridge battle with Diego, complete with an explosion and all, feels ripped straight out of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Visually and thematically, the game wears its influence on its sleeve. You've got dramatic stare-downs, over-the-top villains, a dusty, sun-baked look. It's all there. Red himself is clearly inspired by Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name. Quiet, deadly, and all about personal vengeance. The episodic structure, the over-the-top Western cliches, it all adds up to a game that knows exactly what it is, a playable spaghetti Western. Now, on that topic of spaghetti Western, there's often one theme that you may see in some of these films. Revenge. And you know what they say? Revenge is a dish best served cold. It's a classic quote that's echoed throughout countless stories and media, and it perfectly encapsulates this one. Red Dead Revolver is, at its heart, a story about revenge. On the day Red lost both his mother and father, his world was turned upside down. That single traumatic event became the defining moment of his life, setting him on a path of vengeance. It doesn't just haunt him, it shapes who he becomes, a hardened bounty hunter with one goal in mind: justice. As the game unfolds, Red's pursuit of revenge becomes more than just a personal vendetta. The plot snowballs into something bigger than a grudge, pulling Red into a tangled web of outlaws, warlords, corrupt politicians, and even the Mexican army. Each mission and every confrontation ultimately feeds into that same core drive, tracking down the people responsible for destroying his family. But something shifts during the bar fight scene. That's where Red overhears talk of a man who lost his arm in a shootout, an arm Red knows he shot off as a kid. That moment hits differently. It's a first sign that his past is starting to catch up with him, and it marks a turning point, not just in the story, but in Red's life. His hunt is no longer running on instinct or grief. It's becoming methodical.
All I'm saying is if it were me that lost an arm...
Well, maybe, but a cannon? Well, that's too much gun for any man.
Cork your whiskey holes. You didn't know him before like I did. Only a cannon could replace that man's arm.
How'd he lose his arm?
We ain't telling you nothing, stranger. Near as I can tell, we ain't even talking to you.
Take a walk.
Answer my question, and I'll be on my way.
Well, shut up. Don't tell the stinking prairie dog nothing. Ain't that right, Sam?
I reckon so. Say goodbye, mister.
From here, Red's investigation starts to accelerate. One major turning point is his face-to-face encounter with Governor Griffin. When Griffin pulls that gold-plated Scorpion revolver, Red is instantly thrown back to the memory of his father showing him that same gun. The truth clicks into place. And while we, the players, may have already pieced this together, especially from that earlier mission where we briefly played as Diego in the war, it's still satisfying to see Red realize it himself. It's that everything comes full circle moment. Like when people at your job keep warning you about that guy, and when you finally meet him, everything starts lining up. That's the impact of seeing the gold gun. That's when it all comes rushing back.
Well, Red, you're good. I'll give you that. But of course you'd have to be to live through what you did. Still, I'm afraid that we're gonna have to end right here and now what we should have ended so many years ago.
Isn't she a beaut?
Yeah! Can I hold it?
She's one of a pair, only two in the whole world.
Where's the other one? The other one.
Mr. Kelly, please join me at the mansion when you've finally taken care of business.
Moments like this act as more than just turning points in the story. They serve as a metaphor for something bigger. In real life, elected officials can sometimes be just as corrupt as the villains we see in fiction, and in Red Dead Revolver, the governor is a prime example of that. Throughout the game, we hear whispers and warnings about him, and he talks about how he's trying to take her farm, and Buffalo Soldier is wrongfully arrested while trying to get help from him. We witness firsthand just how corrupt the governor truly is. He's cold, remorseless, and completely self-serving. There's no loyalty in him. He betrays everyone close to him if it benefits his survival. The way he throws his own partner under the bus, someone he built an empire with, tells you everything. After betraying Nate Harlow, he doesn't show an ounce of guilt. Instead, he mocks Nate's son, Red, telling him he should have died alongside his father. It's twisted and cements the governor as one of the most despicable and effective antagonists in the game.
It's lots of gold. More gold than you've ever seen. A gold mine. And it's just over the border in the territory. If you spare my life, I can give you half.
Huh? Why shouldn't I take all of it?
'Cause you don't know where it is.
You better speak fast. We need some privacy. Now tell me more about this gold mine.
Truth be told, there is one little problem. I only own half the claim. My partner Nate owns the other half.
And what if I kill your partner?
Then that would make us partners.
Partner.
Now, the other antagonist that stands out to me is Diego. He feels less like a cold-blooded villain and more like an opportunist, someone who plays every situation to his advantage. His character even seemed loaded with references. Diego could be a nod to Rockstar San Diego, maybe even Diego Angel, the original founder of Rockstar San Diego. He's a soldier by nature, but when money talks, Diego listens. We clearly see this during the mission where Diego and the U.S. Cavalry fight over Rio Grande Crossing. It's chaos, but when Governor Griffin starts talking about money, suddenly Diego's tone changes. That moment marks the start of their partnership and unknowingly the beginning of Diego's downfall. As everything builds to that final showdown on the train, it becomes clear for all his tactics and power, Diego was just another pawn. In the end, it's a reminder, and yeah, this is maybe sound a bit cliche, but it's true. Crime does not pay. At times, Red Story Revenge feels more like a tragedy. The losses of Jack Swift and Shadow Wolf drives home the price of vengeance. Jack Swift's only playable mission has him tracking down the outlaw Perry and trying to save a woman named Katie. What stands out is that if you fail the mission, she dies. That detail shows Jack's nobility. He's not just a gunslinger, he's a protector. And in that mission, he shines. Honestly, Jack is one of the coolest characters in the game, and it's heartbreaking that his strength and courage weren't enough to save him. His death isn't just a casualty, it's a warning. Revenge can take more than it gives.
That was incredible! You saved my life!
All in a day's work. I only wish it were more financially gratifying.
Well, shoot, mister. If getting yourself a little money's all you're worried about, then I know where someone with your talent could pick up $5,000 in gold without even trying.
Pray do tell, young lady, and I would be forever in your debt.
There's a sharpshooter competition in Brimstone. Winner takes all. Shouldn't be a problem for such a fine marksman like yourself.
Well, madam.
Then there's Shadow Wolf. His death hits even harder. He gains his tribe's permission to help Red, not for glory or war, but to save his cousin. And in that effort, he loses his life. Red has already lost so much, but losing Shadow Wolf feels like the final nail in the coffin. Yet in death, there's honor. Red makes sure the world knows his cousin didn't just fall in battle. He fought like a hero. He takes Shadow Wolf's knife and drives it into Darren himself, making sure the man who took his cousin's life goes down by his hand. It's a symbolic act, one that speaks to love, loyalty, and legacy. These weren't just characters, they were noble men, and their deaths show us that revenge doesn't come without sacrifice. Western themed areas with mechanics designed to evoke the grit and flair of classic spaghetti westerns. You duck behind cover, pop out to land a few shots, then roll out to your next target, all while bullets fly and bodies hit the dust. At the heart of the gunplay is Deadeye, a slow-motion targeting system that lets you mark enemies for a rapid-fire takedown. It's a flashy mechanic and can be a literal lifesaver in heated moments, though depending on your playstyle, it may end up feeling more like a safety net than a core feature. And while Red is the star of the show, there are missions where you play as other characters, each with their own weapons and Deadeye variants, adding welcome variety to the campaign. Then there's the duel system. At key moments in the story, you'll be forced into tense high noon standoffs. You start by pulling down the right thumbstick to grab your revolver, then quickly push back up to draw. Time slows down, and you're left frantically moving a cruiser across your opponent, trying to lock in critical shots before they get the drop on you. It's stylish and fits the tone perfectly, though the execution can be clunky, and later duels border on frustrating if your timing isn't razor sharp. Beyond the shootouts, the game tries to stimulate a living frontier by letting you roam small towns between missions. You can chat with NPCs, visit shops, or check in with the sheriff to move the story forward. It's mostly window dressing, but it does a decent job of selling the setting. The controls are generally responsive with a few hiccups. Aiming and movement work well enough, but the camera can sometimes get caught behind the scenery or lag behind during frantic movements, particularly when rotating both X and Y axes at once. Sometimes you can aim your weapon at the person and not even hit them. They turn into an invisible bullet sponge sometimes, even when they're hugging a wall. Mount-based segments where you're shooting while riding a horse or even a buffalo are ambitious but rough around the edges, making multitasking more frustrating than fun. Despite some awkward moments, the game keeps things fresh by constantly mixing up its mission design. One level might have you defending barmaids in a salon brawl. The next could have you manning a Gatling gun or breaking out of a jail. It rarely repeats itself, and that sense of variety is one of Red Dead Revolver's biggest strengths. Multiplayer is also included, though it's limited to local split screen. It features multiple modes like deathmatch, team shootouts, and duels, with over 40 unlockable characters and a surprisingly deep roster of weapons and maps. It's a nice bonus, even if the lack of online play and absence of co-op keep it from reaching its full potential. The game isn't especially long. You can finish it within a weekend, but it's packed with unlockables, bounty hunter missions, harder difficulties, and enough arcade-style chaos to keep you coming back. It's not the most polished shooter out there, but as a pulpy guns blazing tribute to Western grit, Red Dead Revolver gets the job done. Red Dead Revolver received generally positive, though mixed reviews upon its release. Critics and players praised its stylish presentation, unique Western atmosphere, and engaging arcade-style gunplay. The game stood out for its faithful homage to classic westerns, with many noting the satisfying shooting mechanics and the memorable stylized animations, such as Red's revolver twirls and dramatic holstering in the loading screens. The music and overall vibe were often highlighted as strong points, effectively capturing the gritty dust feel of the Old West. However, the game was not without its criticisms. Many found the story serviceable but unremarkable, with some describing the plot as thin and the characters as lacking depth or charisma. The gameplay was often described as challenging, sometimes to the point of frustration, with notable spikes in difficulty in certain missions, especially those involving protecting NPCs or melee combat, singled out as particularly aggravating. Controls were sometimes considered clunky or imprecise, and the dueling system received mixed feedback for feeling inconsistent or luck-based. Despite these flaws, Red Dead Revolver was recognized for its variety in playable characters and the inclusion of different perspectives throughout the story, which some players appreciated as a break from the typical single-character focus. The game's checkpoint system was also seen as a positive, reducing the need to replay large sections after failure, a rarity among Rockstar's 6th generation titles like Grand Theft Auto. Commercially, the game performed well, selling around 2 million copies on PlayStation 2 and 1 million on Xbox, with reviewer scores hovering around 73 to 75 on Metacritic and game rankings. While it did not achieve the critical acclaim or cultural impact of its sequels, Red Dead Redemption or Red Dead Redemption 2, it laid the groundwork for the franchise and is remembered fondly by many as a fun, if somewhat unpolished, Western shooter that captured the spirit of the genre. Now, let's look at average gamers and see how they felt about the game. Gamers consistently appreciated the game's unique Western setting, especially since there were few Wild West shooters on the market at the time, and they acknowledged Rockstar's effort to bring that classic shoot-'em-up experience into a new genre. The game's atmosphere, music, and environmental design were often described as fitting and memorable, with some players even enjoying the stylized graphics and the way the game paid homage to Western films. However, some people also repeatedly highlighted several shortcomings. The story was widely seen as cliched and unoriginal, following a standard revenge plot with stereotypical characters and little depth. While some found the narrative serviceable and fun at times, most agreed it was not a standout feature and suffered from a lack of memorable or well-developed characters. The gameplay, while accessible and occasionally entertaining, was criticized for being repetitive, linear, and lacking innovation. The AI was described as both frustratingly dumb and annoyingly resilient, with enemies sometimes absorbing unrealistic amounts of damage and behaving illogically. The controls and aiming mechanics were also points of contention, with some players finding them imprecise or awkward, especially in comparison to similar games like Gun. On the positive side, the game's replay value and multiplayer features were often praised. Unlockables, extra missions, and the ability to play as various characters added some longevity and variety, even if the core gameplay loop remained fairly simple. Many gamers generally agreed that while Red Dead Revolver could be fun and entertaining in short bursts, especially with friends and multiplayer, it was not a must-own title for most players. Many suggested it was worth a rental rather than a purchase unless you were a big fan of the Western genre or local multiplayer games. In summary, people felt that Red Dead Revolver was a decent, sometimes enjoyable Western shooter with a strong sense of style, but it was held back by repetitive gameplay, a generic story, and technical shortcomings. It was seen as a solid but unremarkable entry in Rockstar's catalog, best suited for those specifically seeking a Wild West experience. Now, I'm going to be real with you all. My first Red Dead game, like many, was Red Dead Redemption. I had a blast with it. To me, it felt like a Western version of Grand Theft Auto, so naturally I came into Red Dead Revolver with that same expectation. And while Revolver didn't quite meet that standard, it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. In fact, it actually impressed me. For a 2004 game, Red Dead Revolver brought a lot to the table. The Deadeye mechanic, genius. It started here, and eventually other games would take inspiration from it. But what really stood out to me was how this game avoided controversy. Think about it. Rockstar is almost synonymous with drama. GTA, Bully, the Redemption series. Yet Revolver, clean slate. And that in itself is an accomplishment. What's wild is how close Capcom was to being part of something special. If they had just worked more closely with Angel Studios and actually listened, they might have stayed on board long enough to see this game blow up. Sometimes you really do just need to talk less and listen more. As for the story, yeah, it's a little cliche in that spaghetti western way, but that's kind of the charm. I enjoyed the revenge plot, the freedom to go wild on NPCs, and the overall vibe of the game. The aesthetic, the showdowns, the weapons, the characters, they nailed it. Now, the game's not perfect. The shooting can be frustrating at times. There were moments when I had an enemy locked on right in front of me and still missed. It gets especially aggravating in those final levels where one missed shot could be the difference between winning and restarting. And without a map like Redemption, sometimes you're just getting shot and no clue where it's coming from. Yeah, there's an arrow indicator, but it's not always helpful. I respect the game's attempt at a mini compass with a stylized system, but on harder difficulties becomes a real issue. Still, Despite its flaws, there's way more to love about the game than hate it. The characters, the world, that little town of Brimstone, it all has more soul than some modern, fully rendered cities. Maybe it's the gameplay, maybe it's my love for westerns, or maybe making this video taught me more about myself than I expected. Either way, if you're still here watching, maybe you too like spaghetti westerns, or you just like Red Dead. Whatever brought you here, one thing's for sure, Red Dead Revolver is a cult classic. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for tuning in. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Next week, we're continuing the Mortal Kombat Takeover with Mortal Kombat Armageddon. And in 2 weeks, we're back with the Rockstar Takeover covering Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. If that sounds like a good time, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our latest uploads. This is the Retro Phantom, signing out.